Hello everyone. I wanted to give you an update on where we are in the semester schedule, on the tasks and assignments that are in progress this week and next week. And I wanted to speak a little bit about the team projects that are underway. So I wanted to show you what I normally do every week is scroll down to the schedule of assignments that's at the end of the syllabus. And I look at what week we're at, which is listed on the right-hand column. Today is September 21st. We're in the month of September here. This is the 21st. We're in the 6th week of classes. Next week, the 7th week, we will have a weekly reflection due. And also the first show and tell with a web presence to document the progress on your project teamwork. So this is what I use to stay on track, and I encourage you all to follow it as well. Now let's go ahead and look at the team progress briefing and see what's in eCampus regarding that. I'm going to put that away. I'm going to go into I'm already in our course on eCampus. I'm going to open up week 5. This is last week. Last week was about getting prepared for teamwork. Some readings were assigned. This one, Why Teams? This reading gives a very good introduction to how teams are different than groups, and how teams need to have some time up front for people to identify their roles. And unlike groups, it's really important that teams have roles and follow them. They can be switched. The leadership can alternate, but when you meet, you need to have somebody who is your recorder, someone who's your timekeeper, someone who is your gatekeeper, and make sure that you stay on track with the issues that need to be discussed, someone who will agree to summarize what's happened, and you need a team leader. This is an interesting article about the biggest mistake you probably make with teams. And I hope you all read this, and it will explain perhaps some of the frustration you initially have working with a team. Now at this point, everyone should have signed up for a team. A couple people have not yet, but I have been in touch with those people. So we have 4 teams. You can see how many people have signed up for different teams. I want to go into one of the teams and show you, from my perspective, you also see the same thing. In each of the team, you have these tools available. Now, I have set up an initial blog in all of the teams. It's the same blog. It gives you an outline of what's due in the team report. The Team 1 report is due October 7th. To give you some guidance and background for that report, here is a chapter from Design and Development Research Handbook. And this article, it's only about 10 pages, but it's exactly the right thing for you to look at to get started and be ready for the Team 1 report. This chapter is called Identifying Design and Development Research Problems. The article outlines this process and gives you very good guidelines on what you need to do. It also recommends some journals that would have appropriate articles for defining and clarifying design problems in the area of instructional design and multimedia learning research. The last page of this chapter provides a checklist for identifying and focusing the problem in a design and development study. Now, I have adapted this checklist into a rubric that I will be using to evaluate your reports, your Team 1 reports. This assignment tool is already posted. The rubric is in the assignment portal, but you can also access it here as an Excel file. This gives you up front the information that you need to see what you need to do. So number 1, and I will say number 1 is worth half of the total points. You need to identify the topic and research problem that relates to one or more of the principles of multimedia learning outlined in the textbook. That's the whole point of this project, for you to apply what you're learning about multimedia learning principles in a specific context. The point of this class is to apply the principles in a design project. It's not so much a focus on what project you create, it's that you're looking in an instructional context and identifying which principles are appropriate. That really is a way to put what you've been reading into practice, because as we've learned, you can't just generalize these principles in a generic context. They are all defined within the learning and instructional context you're working in. So there's the rubric for the Team 1 report. Inside each group, everyone has the team report blog. You can add questions to this. You have to read this paper to get clear ideas about what you're doing, and take a look at the rubric also to be on track there. Now I'm going to go back in the course content folder. And I'm going to take a quick look in week 6, which is the week we're in. As we saw in the syllabus, your team progress briefings are due. So this is a blog where each of the teams creates a blog entry where you talk about what your team has been doing. Have you discussed roles? Have you discussed clarification of the instructional problem you'll be focusing in on? Are there questions that your team has about the project that you want to put into the blog? That would be appropriate. This is really to make sure that the teams are being formed and that you're finding ways to work together. Now I'm going to go back again into week 6. So one part of the assignment is to respond to the blog, demonstrate where your team progress is. The second part, which is due September 29th, next week, this is your regular reading and reflection. And I selected an article that was referenced in the textbook that represented a very nice discussion piece to give you an example of what I want you to be looking at in terms of once you've identified your problem and you're pulling from some of the research evidence to set up your project. This is a really good example of what these researchers did. They identified the problem they were looking at and they set up some a series of experiments to test it. Now, you don't have to, I'm not expecting you to complete a whole research project here, but I am expecting that for this class where you're applying the principles, that you'll see how it was done here. The focus is on how will you set this up that you'll know that principle is the right one. And this is a very good example for looking at, in presenting information, just presenting visual information was not as effective in geometry instruction as presenting a combination of visual and verbal. And the verbal information was spoken. It was audio information. And each of these series of experiments really fine-tunes the context in which the design worked and how it was tested. So I hope this gives you an overview of where we are. We're looking right now at week 6, things that are due next week that you're working on this week. And everyone should already be in a group, starting to work together, look at the tools you can use. And if you have any questions about anything, please email me. And I will be working over the weekend to some extent, but a lot on Sunday. So feel free to contact me. Thank you very much.